Okay, it said it's going to the cloud event, so it's all working.
Great, thank you. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello, Vince.
Hello, Anita. So this recording again will be unlisted, so it'll only be available to people in the list, people with the link. And my computer has no power where I am at the moment, so it'll shut down on me in about an hour and 3/4, and I'll come back on my phone. But Paul's kindly doing the recording for us today, so that should continue okay. So while you guys were turning up, Aline was, is that how you say your name, Aline?
Yeah, it's pronounced like the guy's name, Alan. So yeah.
Oh, Alan, right, okay. Alan was telling us that she's recently, or well, she's not reached. Have you done the final questions yet?
I haven't answered them yet.
Okay.
I've still got them. I'm in the process.
Yeah, she's at that final point and has a how could I call it, a habit, has a habit of
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
knowing what's everything's about, being able to go through the test quite easily, except that she gets anxious at this moment and all of the doubts come back in. And so she becomes not sure of what she's really seen. Is there any doubt in your mind that you've seen through the illusion of a self?
No,
No.
no, not at all.
So what do the doubts say? They call you a fraud?
Well, I guess there's a tendency, or there has been a tendency, the habit, if you want to call it that, of like perfectionism. And so it's like I can't, like, and so I'm much easier on myself about that than I used to be. But I think with this, to me, like, this is everything to me. I've been, well, it's everything to the one who's been looking for it anyway.
Yep.
And so this isn't just about passing some test or walking through some gate or whatever, the words want to be about it. But for me, it's more, this is really all that I've ever really wanted, I guess, for myself. And or for, I mean, just for, I don't know how to even say it anymore, like, it all sounds kind of, so everything that can be said, I guess, kind of to this point, like, that's sort of, I guess, part of the seeing through it is you kind of, as you're saying things, as you're doing and getting it out of your head, you kind of are able to look at it more objectively and see, like, wow, yeah, this is such BS. I don't know. Yeah. So I guess there's sort of that tendency of perfectionism. It's not that I feel like I'm a fraud necessarily. It's just that I guess I just kind of have this sense of, wanting to, like, make sure that this isn't just some, like, other co-opted identity, if that makes any sense, I don't want to fall into that trap of seeing through the illusion of, one whole set of like beliefs about who and what I am, and only to relabel those things again and put it in a prettier packaging. So I don't think the doubt is that I haven't seen through it, right? It's the crazy voice in my head doesn't say, oh, you don't really get this. This isn't really where you're at. It's not a fraud type thing. It's more,
Yeah, let's do it right.
it's the voice in my head that's always been there that says you're never going to
Right.
get where you want to be. You're not, so it's
Now, it occurs to me that you're still taking notice of that voice.
I'm taking notice of the voice, but what I have noticed, and this is kind of and it's why I haven't answered the questions yet. It's like it's being sat with a lot. And like I said, it seems like sort of ever since I kind of really started getting serious about this, joining the guiding and reaching out to find people like you who are doing things like this. Like I said, it just seems like a lot that I have noticed before is always kind of being these patterns of personality, behavior, ways of thinking, things along those lines. It's been noticed up to this point, but it's just so much more amplified, really, again, like I said, kind of since I've started this process. And maybe that's just the nature of it, right? There's things that are being challenged that we've always found some safety or some stability in, even if it wasn't comfortable. And so I think that's just natural that things are coming up or seem to be more amplified in the way they are. So even though, yes, I'm seeing it, what I'm also seeing is that it's almost more of sort of like an outside perspective where it's a detachment from it, where I'm able to not become identified with it and pulled into it as much, and more I'm able to really
Stop,
yeah,
please. I'm exhausted.
yeah, sorry, I don't get to talk
You-
about this much, so I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's not wrong that you're a talker. You bet it is your escape. You use talking to deflect. So yeah. Just be aware of that today. Yeah, but I got the message. I know what you're saying. And I'm sure everybody else here does too. Sure. Let me have a breath. How are you feeling right now? You feeling chided?
Feeling what?
You feel like a naughty girl?
No, I don't. I
Good.
don't. I don't. I appreciate this kind of feedback. This is why I started reaching out for like assistance,
Stop
essentially.
again. Stop. Thank you. I just needed to know. So why do you think you take more notice of those thoughts than you do of other thoughts? In 3 words.
Habit. I mean, that just makes the most sense to me. It's just habit at this point.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that will happen
I found this on the web.
Is that we will start changing a lot of habits. Now I get that, yeah. So when I say we start changing, I don't mean that in the literal way that the words say. And you're going to find exactly that happening. There is no way we can talk about this stuff without using everyday words.
Yeah.
And everyday words just don't cut it, really. They just don't point to exactly what we're trying to say. So we're stuck we're stuck in that illusion, but we know it's an illusion. So it's okay to be there. And we stop fighting it after a while when it becomes familiar. But when I say I know that I don't mean a literal self. But I live in a world where people believe that that is the case. They're the ones I interact with every day. So I have to pretend that there is a literal self there for their sake, just for the communication. And in the beginning, I used to be really conscious of saying I when I said it, and and I would always have that tablet thought would pop up. But we don't really mean it. Now it just happens, and I don't even think about it. And that will be for you too. That'll get familiar. Yeah. So habit is one way to put it is a habit. Habit is a really ground in, really solidly established neural pathway in the brain. And every time we use it, it gets a bit stronger. And habits that we've had for a lifetime are really, really, really well established. They're connections, neural connections in the brain that make up a pathway. And we get triggered into using them. Certain things will trigger us. So you probably find that you're more talkative if you feel a bit anxious, or you might find that these thoughts of doubt come up more at certain points. They're triggered. And so one of the things that will happen as you recognize now, you also, I presume, recognize that choice is an illusion, that decision is an illusion. These are things that actually just happen, okay? So it's not like we can consciously change that neural pathway in the brain, but we do know that if we recognize that it's happening, that recognition cuts the legs out from underneath it. All we have to do is go, it's happening. And boom, it'll stop happening. It might come back seconds later in the beginning, but we recognize that it's happening. And that recognition is the point to celebrate. If you can recognize that it's happening and celebrate it, the recognition that is, you'll very quickly weaken that old pathway and establish an alternative, a new pathway in the brain. Now, when I say very quickly, I'm talking maybe a couple of months, 6 or 8 weeks, not a couple of days, not a couple of times, but it will happen. And I suggest that a great celebration of that recognition is a laugh. Because when you laugh, even if you fake it, when you laugh, you change the hormones in the body. You get rid of any stress hormones and you replace them with feel-good hormones. So you can't laugh, even pretending to laugh, without that happening. So it's a great celebration, and it triggers the recognition to happen more frequently as well when you do that, because it's a reward. It's like giving the dog a reward when it sits. So you reward yourself for when the recognition happens, and it happens more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
In feta work, which was not, we're not focused on feta work here, but it comes in just because it's a great model for looking at things. And when we get past the first feta, which is the illusion of self and doubt's not raging, the third fetter, which is rites and rituals. That's something that we can discuss a bit later. That's a good one. But when we get up to 4 and 5, desire and aversion, that's where the real juice is.
Mhm.
One of the things we recognize is that things like talking, thinking, eating, whatever we do to comfort ourselves is a way of avoiding or a way of getting rid of or moving away from an unpleasant sensation. So when you get anxious and talk, that's what you're doing. You're getting away from the unpleasant sensation that the anxiety is brought up. So again, nothing to do about it, nothing to do with it, just recognize that it's happening. It's a great start. Now, I've spoken too much. Somebody else tell Alan what you're thinking. Oh, come on, Cheryl, you tell her. What do you think?
I'm just sitting here in the sun thinking about how to get out of the sun.
Yeah.
I'll say something. I think like it's okay. Like that's the first thing, right? Like it's like I want this, I want this, I want this. I've wanted this for so long. And just like knowing that, okay, it's okay. It's okay. And yeah, I mean, I don't do any guiding. I'm just, what happens here is just a curiosity. You know, when I'm looking at the fetters, because I do work with the fetters, it's just a curiosity and a staying curious about what's happening here in every moment. So if it's anxiety and the thought is labeling it anxiety, it's just like, oh, where is that? Where is it? What's it like? So it's just the constant curiosity for me. That's all.
Not taking it so seriously, just, yeah.
I can say something. When I saw this before, but I always doubted it. And then I joined Unleashed. And then when I really got that it was the doubting, it was still the thought. It wasn't the truth because I already saw it. So doubting it was just another habit. And as I settled into it, because it was a settling into, as the mind started to quiet down, and I could see every time it tried to do these different things like doubt or seek some more, and I would quietly see through it, it would settle down. And then and as I would ask where it is, and I would feel the sensations in my body. And what was happening last time was I would sit with the sensation in the body looking for, well, who is that? And asking, but it was like so intense, and I would get up and eat. So I started doing these, somebody recommended Killaby inquiries. And I'll tell you, man, oof, because now my awareness can watch these patterns and habits coming and can actually interact with them because I'm aware. It's hard to explain, but I have somewhere to take it to find that there's nothing back there now. where before I was just in the intensity of these sensations and didn't know where to take them.
Say
So
more
now I
about
can,
that, Jenny. Say more about somewhere to take them.
so I would just sit there observing them and being with them and things that I had processed before, but now it's like there was like this energy that felt stuck that I couldn't see behind it. I mean, I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was a story. I know everything's a story. I know it was just a bunch of thoughts, but it was creating this energy. There was energy in my body where I would track it down to, and then that's as far as I could get. And I would just sit there in it, and it was painful. And so I would finally just get up and go eat or go to sleep or something, because it was just a bunch of thoughts. I knew that. So it was sort of like beyond my intellect. My intellect got it. I saw through it. I knew it was, but I didn't know how to go any farther into it so that it would dissolve, because I could get to the core of what was actually generating it, the thoughts that were generating it. And I just knew intellectually it was thoughts. So when I started doing these inquiries, does that make sense? So I could go in and actually interact with those sensations and say, well, you know, and they're still there. It's not like they're gone, but I have a way to go in underneath them instead of just saying, yeah, I know those are thoughts. I see through that they're thoughts. It's still not going away. I didn't seem to have access to the clarity to be able to get under them to see the nobody. It was just a known thing. So now I have access to get under them and make them see through what seemed to be these sensations into the thoughts that were generating them. And I'm like, oh, I believe that. No wonder that feels that way.
Yeah. So you would say that you have a familiar way to address them when they happen.
So now when they happen, I can actually sit with it instead of just going, oh, that's a thought. I know that's a thought. I see through that's a thought, but it wasn't making the sensations go away. It was just so intense. And then I would just, okay, don't make them go away. Just, no, that wasn't, nothing was getting underneath to these subconscious thoughts that were actually generating this. And now when I ask these questions, and then it'll actually show the thought that's generating that sensation. And then I can go, oh, that's what I'm believing. No wonder there's this feeling in this body, because I'm believing that. But before I didn't have access to that was generating the sensation.
Okay. Yep. Now what? So you're at a point where you recognize the feelings and what a feeling is, recognizing that, and you're honing in on the sensation. I wonder, Alan, if you can recognize that a certain feeling has arisen, that is that habit you were talking about. What Jenny's talking about is the process of separating the sensation from the story. So it depends on how your guide has put things to you and how you've seen things. So I'm big on everything being story. Everything is a story that we receive. And a story, of course, is just a thought stream about something. So when you recognize that habit is coming up, I don't know if what Jenny's doing is, it'd be great to get there, but I don't know about straight away. It might be a little bit difficult to do straight away. I don't know. I'm getting tied up here too.
The reason that I was saying it is because every time I would get lost in a sensation, and I couldn't find the thought stream that was creating it, I thought I wasn't awake.
Yeah.
Because I had the illusion that if I was awake, I wouldn't have to look at these patterns and habits of thinking that were causing certain sensations in my body, and also not having access because they were so unconscious. So I thought I wasn't awake, because when you're awake, it's all supposed to just drop. And
So is that for you, Ellen? Is that the way it is for you? Do you say you're not awake?
No, because I think one of the greatest things that sort of got me to be able to say, no, I don't think I'm not awake. I don't think I'm still seeking for something that I don't already have, because really, that was really nipped in the bud with basically one inquiry, which was, so what is a self, right? Well, what the mechanism of that, the components that make up what we come to see as ourself, the illusion of it, when you look at those components and ask, can any of those components in and of themselves think, believe, be conscious? And so, no, obviously not. So whatever it is that's conscious, I can't deny that I'm conscious. I can't deny that I'm awake. I can't deny that awareness is here. So that is always here. And it's not a thought, and it doesn't have to be a thought. It doesn't have to be something that's described or labeled necessarily, but that has to be what this is. It can't be anything else. So that was really, but if you don't mind, one thing I wanted to say about the sort of that catching yourself in the thought and getting to the subconscious thought that creates that's great. And I know that the challenge for that working for me mostly has been, I've always had the tendency to be up here. Everything's been mental. Everything's been trying to figure it out mentally with the mind. So what I see is that I keep trying to do this with the mind, with thought. So yes, I can see through the thought, but it's like there's using more thought to get to the bottom of the thoughts and get to that subconscious root. That just feels more like more of the selfing activity of thought and using the mind to figure everything out. And that just feels so exhausted and frustrated here, that I don't even necessarily, so the that's really kind of the frustration, is how, like, at what point, like, at what point do I just want to give up the whole trying to figure it out part?
Do you
Yeah.
have an
So,
expectation that that's going to stop and stop
well,
instantly and stop
no,
completely?
because obviously that's not something that's within, like, this is happening how it's happening. That's also something that I clearly see. There is still like this in these thoughts that, it's like, how could it be that I have no control over any of this? How could it be that I have no choice? But I do see that that is the case. So for me, it's almost sort of more just this, like I said, kind of this residual just spinning around and playing itself out, but I don't feel so much as though I want to look at it and analyze it.
All right. So for a thought addict like you, we can do a great meme to carry around is, most of your thoughts are bullshit. 99% of them, not useful, just crap. Going around and around, trying to achieve something else is what they're doing. But if you find yourself thinking why or how, they're traps. They're endless rabbit hole traps that have no actual answer. The mind will promise you satisfaction if you go down there chasing it, but you'll never get that satisfaction. That's why it becomes a habit and you keep doing it, because you're still looking for that satisfaction. It isn't going to happen. So the only legitimate question is what? What is this right now? So as soon as you say how or why, just flick it away, not going down that rabbit hole. Come back to what? And the good solid place for what is the experience in the body? What sensations can I feel now? Where are they? How intense are they? Are they changing? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
That short circuits a whole lot of that other stuff. Yeah. But do you recognize that you have a story running that says, this shouldn't be happening. This is wrong.
Yeah, that I do recognize that story comes up a lot, but especially in social situations. But I just I think where I'm really at this point is like I said before, not wanting to. I guess I feel sometimes the doubt is, how do I know that it's not just another, how do I know it isn't just another thought trying to become a me or an identity that's trying to see through this identity? How do I know that what's happening here isn't still just like a hijacking almost of, can it be that subtle that I don't even notice it? And I think that's really the doubt that comes up most. Like, how do I know that I'm not just trying to like
So say that question
thinking of
again.
this to be so?
Say that question again. How do I
The
know?
doubt, yeah, the
Yes.
doubt is, how do I know
What was the
that
first
it
word? What was
isn't?
the first word in the sentence? The
Yeah,
very
you're
first word.
right.
Yeah.
Good catch.
So yeah,
Yeah, and that just puts you right back in the mind again.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Endless rabbit holes. No bottom to them whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so different for everyone. So everyone can tell you 10 million different stories of how they know, or how they came to know, or what happened, or you know,
Mhm.
there is no one, like, yeah, like Vince said, the how is not, that's not,
There's not just one how.
there's no
Yeah.
answer to that. There's no answer to that.
Yes, that's, yeah, I like that. There's just no answer to that. Well, there's answers to it, but it's just answer upon answer upon answer. And then that goes to all these other stories that have answers and answers. And yeah. So yes, I like that, that Vince, that it's totally bypass the mind. Not necessarily push it away, but just ignore it. It's when I find myself in that, asking those how questions, asking those why questions, that'll be my prompt, I guess, that
Yeah.
it's time to drop into
Just
what's being
recognize.
felt and not the thoughts about it.
Okay, here's one that's a little blunt for you. Just recognize that that is mental masturbation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this mind likes to stimulation, entertainment, like stories, fairy
Yeah.
tales,
And there's
anything.
nothing wrong with them if you see them for what they are. It's when
Right.
you take them seriously, that's when the problem happens. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
when
as
it's
I say, 99% of your thoughts are useless, but quite a lot of them can be entertaining. But that's very seductive. You've got to be careful because the mind is so clever, at sucking you in with promises.
It's like, yes, and it's like there's nothing wrong with the stories being there, and they can be beautiful and entertaining and fun, right? But it's like watching a movie. The movie's only fun if you realize that it's just a movie and it's not, and you get up when the movie's over and you walk away from that. You don't carry it around with you and take it to be like, you know, part of you or part of your life.
Yep.
So
So
that's been
when
a challenge for me, as well as still like realizing that none of this means that, like, just because it's not ultimately true or ultimately real doesn't mean we can't still enjoy
absolutely.
it. It's
So if you
just
take
that,
somebody like an actor up on the stage, they're playing a part. They've got a character that's written into the script that they're playing. But the whole time that they're doing that, they're aware that they're doing that.
Mhm.
Some might get lost in it, but basically they'll be saying, I know that my name's John, even though I'm playing a character called Fred. And
Yeah.
this is a good analogy for life for us. You know, it's like this is how we get around in life, right?
Mhm.
You know that we're playing this part called Alan or Vince or whatever. And we need to do that because that's our job. We're in this, we're in the play. But when they finish the act and they put their real street clothes on and they go home, there's something different. Well, when we go home, there's no words anymore.
I did find myself having a lot of resistance to not the questions themselves through the guiding, but it felt very mental,
Yeah.
even though and I mentioned that to the guide, and I even told her at the beginning that one thing I was kind of experiencing was a resistance to doing it the way we were doing it, because I guess there's some guides that you can either get on the phone with or do like a video guiding with or something. But the way we were doing it was she would send me the questions and I would go through them for myself, sit with myself and answer the questions. And then I would have to translate that experience of the answering of the questions into words and put it down and make it, I felt it just,
Yeah.
that's, you said
Constraining. Yeah.
using words for distraction. It's not that I talk to distract, it's that I've always had trouble really expressing what the actual experience is. And so that was very challenging. I even told her that, and she said, if it's really an issue, we can look for another guide and possibly find a different situation. But then I thought, well, no, you know what? This is where the resistance is. This is obviously
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
I would just be
The worst thing
avoiding.
that could happen.
Yes, I would be avoiding trying to find a more comfortable way to do this, or a more like a way that felt better. And that to
And
me
that
just
comfortable way would be
yeah.
you doing a lot of talking and getting away from the issue. It would be so hard to keep you on track because of this
Yes.
tendency you've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the putting it concisely on paper, so to speak, it was a great exercise for you.
Yes.
Difficult, but very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
People have to be, it's a tricky one. People have to be almost rude to interrupt your talking, because once you start, you don't leave any gaps for
Yeah.
people to come in.
Yeah. It's wanting to be understood, but feeling that I'm not, even though maybe I am, right? I could be being perfectly well understood, but and very clear. But there's
And you're
this,
doing it again now.
yeah, it's just, oh no, they're not getting it, or I'm not explaining it well, so I have to over explain. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Leela, I want to hear what Leela has to say. Sorry, Alan.
We've got
Or I
three
know
minutes.
Anita. Anita had her hand up first. I don't know if we're doing hands today.
We've got two Leelas. So just to avoid confusion, the Leela with the glasses, let's call you Birdie, eh? Is that all right? Yeah.
But Anita has had her hand up for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan, when I'm listening to you talk, I realize that the doubt and the what I'm hearing, the doubt and the how and why questions are all rooted in time. In time, and how will I ever find that, is it a fake, or, the doubt is kind of, and the how and why questions are also rooted in time. So the thing is, awareness and consciousness can only exist right now. And your experience of the right now, this is, so I'm not sure if this is going to be useful for you or not, but we'll see. That as soon as the mind starts to wander into regret or why did that happen, or how did that happen, or into the future of why or how that's going to happen, that is a time-based thought, and it has no relevance. It is the monkey hole. So and the quickest way to come out of that is come straight into the body's experience, the sensory experience, because that takes you out of time. Because the only experience we can really rely on is what's happening right in this present moment, this present second. And it's a sensory experience. So I don't know if that's of any use to you or not, but I could just hear the kind of the way the mind plays around with time and projection, and never will and never can and never was, all that sort of thing. I don't know if that's useful, but I just thought I needed to say that.
No matter what it is, somebody is going to find it useful. But yeah.
So I'm very excited. What I wanted to share was back. I mean, it has to do with everybody, but it has to do with what Jenny was saying predominantly. But I had an amazing, then stop me if I'm talking in circles, because I'm a little bit stoned at True Confessions at the moment. But I had an amazing experience just now, and it has to do with sensation and story. And I always wondered, I don't know, not all of you know that I used to be a doctor, a surgeon, and I've always been very fascinated with the connection between how story becomes form in the body, how the stories we tell ourselves get, quote, cellular memory and all this, these concepts, how they work. And what's interesting about that is I've known personally many people who are awake, quote, teachers even, quote, and they get mystery illnesses, probably 7 or 8 years into their teaching. They develop these really bizarre fevers and symptoms that Western medicine can't figure out. And I've actually taken care of 1 or 2 of my friends with these things. And I've always wondered what the fuck is going on with the, quote, awake people, because Jenny, I had that belief that you articulated that once you see through self and see through thought, then all of this drops. Well, hell no, it doesn't. It's there in some form, in form, because form solid is slower moving thought. Yeah. And so I had the experience today of working with somebody using, and I don't, since I became a Buddhist, she got me off. I used to do psychedelics like 4 times a year as medicine. And my Buddhist teacher said, no, you can do this with meditation, blah, blah, blah. So I stopped all my medicine. But today I had a body worker. He's in his 70s. He's been doing this with ketamine, low dose, for years, like 50 years. He's a master, like a master. So he came to my house to work with my friend, and I just tagged along for the ride. And I experienced a story getting ironed out of the body. And basically what it was, with the little help of the ketamine, what it did was it helped drop the veil a little bit. So when it's really shamanic and it's body work. It's like a myofascial release, but it's very intense. And with the help of the medicine, you're able to see that this sensation is only a story. So this low back pain that I've had for 20 years, that's a story. So I gave him a start of a story about my father, and then we ironed the story out from the insertion of the muscle, down the muscle, out the foot. And it was like a shamanic extraction. Like, I don't know if anybody's worked with medicine, but there's this in Mexico, when I learned how to work with mushrooms, they had extractors. And those are people who actually, in a shamanic culture, the people would come to the healer, and he would, wherever the illness was, he'd grab something out of the body, and then it produced this clay figurine. Oh, here it is, I've taken it out of you. And then the person thought then the thing was gone, right? So it wasn't a story. In this case, it was a figurine, but it embodied the story. So the way you connect the late illness to the work we're doing here is seen through Fetter 123, does not address this necessarily. And all of us have all this stuff in our physical form from, he was working on stuff from age 2, age 6, but what was I saying? Oh yeah. So later fetters, you start to dissolve these things with the later fetter, but a lot of people who are teaching under the name of non-duality or whatever haven't done that work. So their body comes back to go, hey, hello, I'm still here. All this you may have seen through the me, but you haven't seen through this thing, which is quote unconscious, quote subconscious, quote embodied, whatever you want to talk about. And it then becomes an area which is ignored in the body. It doesn't get lymph flow, it doesn't get blood flow, it can become cancer, it can become illness, it can become injury. And so anyway, I'm very excited because I actually was witnessing this in real time now with this understanding of it was like I looked at him, I go, and he would make sounds, he'd pull it out. He would make shamanic sounds like, ooh, like it's coming out, like, in addition to moving the muscles. And I said, you're just like moving stories out of the body, aren't you? And he said, yep. He said, yep. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Hopefully it makes sense to you guys. But it was very illuminating to me. And I'm not sure if the ketamine is necessary. And this is what I'm exploring with my friend. She's a curandera, like a medicine worker. She's been she's also in her 70s. And she's been working with medicine with people, which is basically the same work we're doing, but it's not as clear, and it's not as daylight. It's more like under the hood work. And so my question is, do you need the ketamine to actually do this or not, is my next question that comes. Probably not, but it helps because it gets your cortex out of the way, and the cortex is the part that's me selfing all the time. What this means to me, what's about me, the default mode network going over and over and over. So the psychedelics just cut that at the knees, and then you can actually feel those deep stories start to come up from 6-year-olds, whatever, the stories you don't realize you're repeating, which are causing the sensations and the contractions that make up the feeling of me, which exists after you see through self. The feeling of me remains.
Yeah, so the fetter work is a model that is used to get at a lot of those more subtle things that remain. But one thing that comes out from what you say, Leila, is valuable, is that there is no finish point. There is no point where we can say that's it, we're done. Although some people might, but it's just for good practical purposes. I think no, I can't ever say that I'm done. There's always going to be more stuff coming up if I'm open to it. If I recognize my way of avoiding it, my own particularly unique way of avoiding it. And most of us will use thoughts to do that. And really, I'm absolutely can understand what you're saying about how those stories become physical. You know, the way we do that is it's a mystery how it happens, but the fact that it happens is totally clear to me. I've had certain experience.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into what my experiences were at the moment. I can. I'm happy to, but what I'm saying is that we've probably all had experiences of what you'd call miracles, even, you know, that things that have disappeared, you know, from a simple wart, in my case, to a bowel full of polyps and so on, you know, that it happens. It's amazing. There is magic in the air. So any idea that we can do this test at LU and that's it, we're done, is just a joke. It's not the way it is. It's the beginning of things rather than the end of anything. And what it is we've been given a rudimentary toolbox as a way to look at what comes up and deal with those things. Anita, just jump in. Don't be polite.
Leela, I just wanted to answer that question about that you had on the end there about I don't know if there's other ways of doing it. I come from a very long yogic tradition. You know, I've been involved with it for over 40 years, and part of that tradition is a practice called Yoga Nidra, which most people have heard of now. But the Yoga Nidra practiced daily does that thing about releasing, untying the physical knots at the deep skeletal muscle level, which controls posture, and allows it to come up as a bubble of, you know, that was my experience of using it. And when you're doing it, you should be mind directed, not listening to a tape. So you direct it through your body, through each part of your body, your awareness, and you'll often know that you've hit a part in your body that is holding memory or contraction, because you can't keep your awareness on it. It slides off. Bang, it slides off. And all of a sudden you're thinking about tomorrow and you hang on, mind back on that shoulder there, you know, not mind, but awareness. And if you hold it there and hold it there and hold it there, it releases and the memory comes up of that, of what put it there in the first place. So you can release memory from childhood and things in that practice. So, you know, there are some of those kind of really ancient yoga.
I would love to try with you getting right. I did Yoga Nidra. It's a long, you know, there's like the edge of sleep Yoga Nidras, and there's all kinds of things. So I'd like to do the part that completely relates to the bubble release. But there was something about the physicality, getting in there in the tissue. In addition to releasing the memory, right? There was something additional added by the touch and the tissue and the movement through the body that was something I think was valuable.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, like all of those things. I've also been a Chinese medicine doctor for over 35 years. And the techniques I use now also release really long-term held structural, emotional, psychological things. So, and it's just with needles or a bit of bleeding, you know, taking a few drops from some acupuncture points, and it will release the whole line, you know. So
but the important part, Anita, is now, because we are in this group, we are seeing through story, we're seeing through self. Like when you go to a Chinese medicine doctor, your clients aren't doing this inquiry, right? They're by and large, you are doing it for them. And in a way they're doing it, but they're not aware they're doing it. But it's, to me, it's the power is in, oh my God, I see how this thought is 99% bullshit. Well, it doesn't matter, but it became form. And this is the form it became, right?
Well, that's right. So I think it is the form. When we're talking about form, so what I'm saying, I'm not saying that the technique that you used was any lesser or better or anything. It's just there are different ways which don't involve taking a substance. That I guess that's what I'm pointing out, and that it can be done directly through direct experience with being in the embodied and actually allowing all of those memories to come up. And that's certainly been my experience, and as a result, it realigns you physically. So there is a physical component that actually changes your structure at the time it's released. Yeah. So wherever there's a contraction of memory or holding on to something, there's a change in the physiology within the body. The long held stuff, like you say, it gets embodied, and it probably creates a lot like long-term imbalance and ill health. But I know that can. I've had direct experience and trained in the guy who actually developed yoga nidra originally, the Swami, and my teacher. But we use those techniques, and it just works. It works. So yeah. So the point was there are other ways of doing it without the chemicals, and you still have the same physiological and psychological. It just clears, goes. The memory comes up as a bubble. Oh man, I remember that. I forgot all about that. And it's gone. Doesn't come back. Yeah. So I'm sorry, that was my input. Yeah.
My inclination is to add to this that under both of those circumstances, it would be much smarter to do it with a guide rather than do it by yourself. Our inclination is to always pull ourselves back into the familiar. But having said that, I will tell you one of my early experiences, way before I woke up, and that was that I had bowel cancer, and I got had an operation that took away 1/3 of my bowel, and it was a big bowel cancer. Anyway, after the operation and after 5 months of chemotherapy, I had a colonoscopy, and the result was that my bowel was riddled with polyps, and so they wanted to take the rest of my bowel out so that I didn't get cancer and die as a result. But I said no. I said, give me let's have another colonoscopy in 6 weeks. Well, it turned out to be 10 weeks when I had that. And what I did was I immediately booked myself into an ashram not far from where I lived, and I did lots of yoga nidra and self-hypnosis, and I had been a therapist for 5 years, so I was quite familiar with that one. And I used the image of a work group, a team of tiny little people this big with high-vis vests running around with high-pressure water sprays cleaning the inside of my bowel. And to cut a long story short, with that and a lot of yogic cleansing and yoga nidra and self-hypnosis and meditation, 6 weeks later I went back and had another colonoscopy, and the bloke said, "Oh, I must have made a mistake. I can't find any polyps here." So I know it works. I know it happens. And that was me in my ignorance doing all of that. That was way before I woke up, before I knew anything about the illusion of self. So yes, it can happen. And I did that basically by myself. So, that was, the gods of luck were with me is all I can say about that. But anyway, it works. So, but if you're going to use substances, if you do it with a guide, they can keep you on track. If you don't do it with a guide, chances are you're just going to go off into the world of entertainment, unless you're really, really focused. So, yeah. And even yoga nidra, if you're just doing it by yourself, you'll wander off into what's more pleasant rather than what's more workable. Yeah. Unless you're well trained in it, maybe. Yeah.
It's funny because the mind wants to hold on to, these stories, or whatever, wants to hold on to these stories. And I used to use eating to distract, and then I would use getting busy. And then I was talking on one of these calls how I would just sit still and just anxiousness, and I would sit with that energy and I didn't know what to do with it. So finding out, these stories, but now what will happen is I'll go and I'll start to get close and I'll get really tired and I'll fall asleep. So it's just wanting to, no, don't go there. So, I've been working now with being with that and not going in and laying down and keeping myself sitting up and just being with that sleepiness as it's trying to take over. But yeah, I think that's the trick of trying to do it alone is, somebody, maybe if I was with a guide, they could help me stay focused. I'm extremely focused, but it would be beneficial to have someone there seeing something like, even on a Zoom, where they can see me and see where, where the mind is trying to, get away from that and not look at the story. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add that you don't need to look at the story. You don't need to go into the details of the story. Recognizing that there's a story there doing that is all that's required. It can be.
Yeah, I like the
great.
bubble. I like the bubble theory, because I've had that where I've focused on the energy in the body and just with awareness and just watch it. And then it would just like rush out my body, like an energy when it would release.
Yeah.
And I like that because I didn't even need to know what the story was. I just felt it let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm trying to look for a story and I don't need to.
Yeah. Just recognize that there is a story involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the mind's trying to look for a story because the sensation is so intense and it wants to distract so bad to the point of even falling asleep. So if I just stay with that and even the sleepiness, ultimately it's going to release.
All of those, Jenny, are reactivity. They're all reactions. Sleep, looking for a story, figuring it out. Yeah,
yeah. So sooner or later, I just keep bringing myself just to awareness, just to awareness, just to awareness pretty soon. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's helpful.
So can I just jump here on the whole ketamine thing? I guess it's been a couple of years now, and I did a ketamine injection, and I'd done psychedelics before, but I did this at a big fancy cancer clinic in Seattle with I did it with Leanna Standish, who's a naturopathic oncologist, and she's dedicated her whole career to cancer and psychedelics. And like she has an ayahuasca trial in the works for the FDA that she's had for years and all these things. But anyways, I was her star patient because I've had so much trauma and because I've survived cancer for so long. And that's what she told me. So they're all excited about me coming in and doing the ketamine in the office. And it completely backfired. I wasn't in a good state going into it. And the treatment itself was pretty uneventful. I kind of fought it, and I left my body as soon as the injection went in my arm and just kind of went into the grid, but it wasn't anything life-changing.
Yeah, it's dose, it's set and setting, and it's dose dependent. You got what's called a K-hole dose, which is where you go into the grid, as you said, and you leave and that's not going to help either the inquiry into the body or into any form of story. That's the quote non-dual, shoot me to outer space dose, and that's ridiculous.
Well, what happened was the next day I woke up, and I've been fighting to live my entire life. I have done some crazy stuff to stay alive, and all of a sudden I don't want to live anymore. And I came up with like a plan. I was, trying to find a home for my dogs. I thought my kids would be like this total, like I was just done. And not only that, I ended up, I just crashed. My blood work looked like I had full blown mono. It destroyed the lining of my bladder. I'm still, if I go off antibiotics, and I've tried a zillion herbs, all the things, if I go off a low dose of antibiotics, I get a bladder infection to this day from the damn ketamine. And they had no idea what to do or how to handle it or what happened. So the general consensus was that all the hidden trauma that I had just kind of came up to the surface and it was too much, but they didn't know how to help me. So they just kind of, you know.
Well, I'm sorry, in a way, I'm sorry I mentioned the drug, because this is not about the drug and it's not meant to be a referendum on drugs. What it was simply, you know, I'm a believer in some low dose in some settings, but I don't like heroic doses of anything for people, but it doesn't matter. There's no right and wrong there. And you know, all I'm saying is the experience was the experience, and Vince and Anita and a lot of people have spontaneous remissions and do that work without drugs, and it's not necessary. I'm not saying it's necessary at all. And yeah, the people who think, doctors who in ketamine clinics in very sterile settings who think they're going to actually reproduce something useful for a client in a clinical setting like that. I think that whole thing is, well, don't get me going on that. Yeah. So I'm sorry I mentioned it. Please erase it from this is not a public recording.
I know this is.
I'm not advocating. I'm not defending.
Well, everybody else I've ever done, you know, any kind of mushroom or ketamine or ayahuasca, most of the people have had pretty good results and good experiences, but not me. But I've had experiences, but never with drugs, and I've done my share of drugs in my life, but that's
well, it's not your
good
jam.
stuff happened to me. Yeah. If it could only be that easy.
Aren't we? Absolutely. Everybody is so unique. Yeah. What works for one isn't necessary for another one. Yeah. Donna, tell us, are you through the gate? Have you seen through the illusion of self?
I have. Nice to be here. My friend Stacy gave me the wrong link, and it's you know, everything's so perfect. So coming into this conversation is exactly what's happening. What's happening at this time. And briefly, it's been happening for 12 years. And as that sense of self, I equate it to plate tectonics, kind of comes apart, and I can see it's made the fabric of that sense of self. It's made of, and there's been a lot of trauma here, made of the thinking connected to sensation. And so as the thoughts slow down to where I can actually hear them and sit back as hearing the sensations are just so intense. So I have had to rest back and even question have the shape of the body disappear in order to handle the intensity. Because as soon as the container of the body takes shape, it's almost impossible for my mind not to get involved and to bear it. So I have to do it with eyes closed in the space, listening to the sound, where there's just noticing, there's just sensation, and there's just sound. Well, that's my story in a very small nutshell. Couldn't be a more perfect topic. I'm happy to be here.
Right. Yeah. Good to have you here. Yeah. Maria, what about you? You want to not talk, keep baby asleep?
Hi, Vince. Hello. I'm just reading the messages from Aline and John. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I don't know what to say, apart from the fact that what's been noticed is so many synchronicities in all these conversations, life answering its own answers through the projections, the mirrors. That's what's coming up for me. Talked about bowel cancer, Vince. As of today, a friend's daughter died from bowel cancer, and it's been on my mind because I've had some bleeding myself that I needed to do something. So it's interesting what's coming up. There's a lot of echo, there's a lot of mirroring and echo questions that have been brewing on a daily basis. This is not uncommon for me. It's yeah, this is how life flows quite a lot of the time, which is lovely. It's lovely.
It brings up an interesting one, what you say there too. So we don't make decisions, and we don't, I presume you've seen through some of those early illusions, eh? Yourself?
Yeah, I hear
See-
people talk about the fetters. I have no idea what fetter system
Yeah,
is. Never practiced
Yeah.
from it.
You'll
But
you'll
there's
get it, but don't
resonance.
worry. Yeah, yeah. So although we know that we don't make decisions, and we know that the decisions just happen, choices just happen, action just happens. It comes to mind for me to say to you, go and get checked straight away.
Yeah.
If you've
Yes, I
got
have been checked. Yeah, I think I need to give some
early
context as
intervention
well.
is valuable with bowel cancer. We almost
Yeah.
have 100% success rate if we get it early.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't it interesting that this very conversation is like a mirror of what was already raised in the group about enlightenment and you know, we cannot go beyond the body. We can in the realm of the story, but we are humans and will forever remain humans. And
Yeah.
what's emerging for me in my journey is, as I've reached out a lot of I've just given birth. I've got baby here. I don't know if you can all see it.
Yeah.
Can you see, baby? I cannot even find me, but that's a metaphor there.
Where we see, yeah. Oh.
So it's
She'll be back.
That's so cute.
You know, that's so funny, Vince, because, you know, we don't make choices and we don't make things happen, yet these synchronicities that just happen and words come and when this answer happens but nobody's doing it. It's just this dynamic movement of life happening.
apologies. Zoom just threw me out there. It reminded me that my time is up, which is very apt where I am in my journey.
So, Maria, was it you? Are you Mapia on the?
Yes, that's right. It's the name in my Greek letter.
So, have you met Zeta yet?
I have connected with Jahira. I think she's here,
Great.
isn't she?
Yeah, she's there. Yeah.
Judy.
Hi,
hello.
Judy was here too. Hi, Judy.
I think is still
Hi,
here. Yeah. We've attempted a connection and we'll try and meet up. And I thought I was a little bit more awake today. I thought I'll join in the meeting today as well to get an experience of the group. And yeah.
So do you have to go now?
I don't know. I'm planning to stay unless Zoom throws me out again.
Oh, okay. I thought you took it as a sign that you said that you were going to leave.
It's 9 o'clock. I've got 3 kids and I'm shattered by 9 o'clock UK time. I'm crashing by 7:30. So there's a lot of busyness in this story. There's a lot of juggling 3 children without family support is a hell of an invitation, is how I'm trying to see it, to do the inquiry and keep coming back into awareness as awareness. Now, as I'm saying it, it's very clearly seen. I can never leave this place anyway, so I cannot come back to it. I am that place. It's very, so there's something for me about in the talking, the seeing is being cemented and it feels very, very, it's a theme that keeps coming back, but in the expressing of self, there's an anchoring in the seeing. And I don't find these spaces to do that in dialogue with people in my daily life. So it feels harder to do it inwardly because of the speed of the events that are unfolding.
We were on a call yesterday where someone mentioned recording his voice just as he was speaking to I guess he was saying most people would write in a diary or keep a log of something, but he was saying he would make voice messages, and he didn't necessarily need to listen back to them. But I thought that was interesting, making some kind of voice.
That resonates, Jahira. Voice is definitely a portal here. And I don't think it's an accident that life has just unfolded things in such a way so that I trained to be a sound healing practitioner with a voice. So, you know, it's one of these titles. And yeah, so there's something about voice as a theme that keeps repeating, keeps returning. But anyway, good to be here. Good to be here.
Great, yeah. Good to have you here. Yeah, voice is interesting. And we often think that most of our thoughts are verbal, but of course we do have other thoughts that are not verbal. We have visual thoughts, we have audible thoughts as well. Although the audible ones are often in the form of words. But yeah.
Maria, you mentioned in some of the exchanges we had that you had
Judy, you're breaking up. Turn your video off.
there was some parenting questions that you had. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Try again.
Yep.
No, we're not hearing you. No, we can't hear you at all, Judy. Shitty internet.
I think she was inviting me.
Yeah.
Maybe type it in the chat.
There are other people with the unmuted, and we can hear background discussions going on. Can you mute if you're not talking, please?
Yeah, Lisa Jane has back on. There we go.
So Vince,
I'm not going to try one more time. Is it working or still not working?
Now it's working.
No, yeah, we can hear you, Judy.
Is that?
We can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
it's working.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Maria about that. You said you had some questions about parenting and dealing with parenting or dealing with children and inquiry and things. And I didn't know if you wanted to bring them up in this forum or not.
Yeah. See what's here right now.
Yeah. They're welcome. They're welcome. There's nothing separate from this.
You said already. You said already that you are juggling a lot without help from family.
Yeah. Is that a story?
Is that do you label that as overwhelmed? Does that feel overwhelming?
Yeah, that's right. And it is experienced as that. At the same time, while the experience is happening and the thinking is happening as an overwhelm, that's the attachment of the story that comes in very quickly, like an autopilot. Simultaneously, it's also saying that it is a story. And as I'm saying that now, what I'm recognizing is that there may be some belief there that this shouldn't be happening, which is an illusion. And so this is the kind of dialogue that I need. I'm very, very trusting the thing that has happened. But because things happen in such a speed, yeah, it's the ripening and the abiding in that seeing that's what's needed in terms of parenthood and the sense of responsibility. So of course the overwhelm can happen, and I've experienced a lot of times overwhelm, intense experiencing rather, but also feeling the freedom in that experiencing as well. So I know that some of that has faded, but there's still breadcrumbs, as I call it. Still something is lingering, something is holding on, and I cannot identify. The practice that I've had so far has been self-inquiry, spiritual inquiry. I don't know how people are familiar with what term. The who am I, and where is this arising in? I haven't practiced anything different than that.
Okay, can I jump in with that?
Sure, please.
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
That's, you've got to be really careful with that one. Who am I? Who's experiencing this? It invites you to bypass. It invites you just to simply avoid what's happening. So my suggestion would be to invite what is happening, welcome it as an opportunity for you to find out something, but not put any effort into looking for what needs to be found out, to simply abide in it, even though it doesn't feel pleasant. Because what we see as a problem is frequently is actually the solution. So what's happening for you there, that feeling of overwhelmed, is like a safety net. It's like you jumping into somewhere that's, I'm going to put it, manageable. Even though that sounds contradictory with being overwhelmed, but it is a safety place for you to go. So that way things, you shut down a whole lot of conflict by being there. So the answer is to recognize that what's happening is a good thing, and it's providing you with an opportunity to discover what's going on. Yeah,
that's what I need to hear. The words there for me, Vince, is the reminder, the trust, return back to trust. The spiritual bypassing was seen. Spiritual bypassing. It's a very tempting one. If I was to describe myself, I'd say I'd go into emotional wreck. But what's actually happening is, I don't feel there's much spiritual bypassing happening. If anything, what's happening is pure flow of, I call it overwhelm, of experiences and tears and feelings, and I let it flow. But there is a story still here sometimes that says, this is too tiring, this is too exhausting to keep happening. Okay, so there's an element of that story hanging. I don't feel I can spiritually bypass anymore. The doors are open. The doors are blasted open.
Good one.
I'm a psychotherapist by background, so that story helped in the journey to do the inner work and all of that, right?
Now stop seeing it as work. It's play.
It's play. I love that. Yes, thanks for that. Yeah.
And right along, I think right alongside with what Vince is saying too is following that back from like the story and the emotion that we label overwhelm into the body. Because if your body is having symptoms, the body's having symptoms, then maybe there's that, where that root of that story is actually in your stomach or colon or whatever that's having a symptom. And to go ahead and track it in and have access to that sensation in the body. that is appearing as symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of resonance in that, Jenny. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of, there's a flashing that's happening. It feels like it hasn't stopped. You know, somebody's pressed the flash in the toilet and things are being flashed out at a very fast speed. Yeah, play.
One of the things
intimidation.
that I've experienced is the dropping of a lot of social filters. You know, so laughing and crying inappropriately happens here all the time.
Yeah, that's so. This is what I want to hear. This is the kind of stuff I want to hear because, you know, it makes you feel less alone in a way, doesn't it? Yeah, great. Okay. Brilliant.
Is it okay if I share something?
Sure.
Don't ask, jump in.
So I've been really noticing how the speed, the seeming speed of things prevent my seeing of what they're made of. What I mean by that is if there's a train of thought and it's going at a bazillion miles an hour, the me train, that's what I call it, and it's going down the track so fast, and I forget that it seems solid, and I forget it's made up of individual thoughts. And if I really look and open seeing, then open hearing, and then open that sensory field, things automatically slow down, especially that train of thought of thinking that gives solidity to that story or solidity to the sense of self. And then I'm able to, it's almost like it creates, the slowness creates the space between the feeling and the words. And then I'm actually sitting in the gap, and I can feel if the thoughts come slower, I can feel the contraction happening in the sensory space. Oh, that and that. And then I just the slowing down, which has been invaluable in my experience in being able to break the solidity.
Thank you, Donna.
I don't know if that's what you consider bypassing or not. It doesn't feel like it over here. I'd like to know that definition in this group.
No, I think that that's a very good explanation of the me train. I love that. The me train gets going, and that's where the unconscious becoming, this character. It's slowing down. I love the way you described it as it slows down and I'm present and I'm looking at actually what is rather than in the past and present of the me train, and just what's actually here and the thought, and watching the mind-body connection of the contraction in the system as the thought and the emotions that get stirred from that. I thought you described that beautiful. Bypassing would be, oh, there's no me, so there's no contraction, or nobody's feeling it, and I think that would be kind of the gist of the direction of bypass.
Vince, you look like you're going through a car wash.
Yeah, my computer just shut down and I'm now on my mobile.
Yeah, it's like water's running outside your car. It's dark.
Oh, look, yeah, I'm in wonderful Melbourne, and it's drizzling rain and totally miserable.
I don't know if you can read the chat on your phone, but Alan puts a long chat in there. And I think if I were Stacy on this call, which I'm not, I could channel Stacy and ask Alan to do some work with the thought, I am not understood.
I just reposted it for you, Vince, in case
Yeah.
you'd lost it.
The thought is the belief, the core belief that I'm not understood, and that your comment, Vince, to her made that even worse by saying that she was talking and you couldn't get a word in edgewise. So if Alan wants to jump back in, it would, I think, we don't want to ignore.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
I didn't feel as though anything Vince said or anyone else said was saying that I was talking too much, or that it was, that wasn't what was felt. And I didn't want, and I certainly I was careful with my words to not make it come across that way. I'm just being honest with kind of what's coming up, and the thoughts that come up is, well, how, not why, but what is it that makes the way that I guess I was verbalizing what's being experienced any different than the way you guys are sitting here verbalizing your experience, if that makes sense. And so those are the thoughts coming up is, well, if my attempts to try to verbalize my experience of this are as excessive or could be a distraction in some way, what is it that I'm not seeing about that I guess causes the thoughts to come, well, I'm just not really heard or understood, or for some reason my verbalization of the experience is somehow more excessive than anyone else's. I hope that makes sense. And I do realize that there is trouble here sometimes verbalizing the experience because of sort of that. It's not that, it isn't that I feel necessarily judged
Alan,
by
it's
peers, more
called
that
share
that's
the
the
air.
reflection.
Share the air. Let's all take a breath.
Alan, maybe I can say something that might helpful, because I catch myself doing that sometimes. Is
Before
if you
everybody gives her feedback, I'd like to know, Alan, are you asking us for reflections on that question?
Yeah,
Would you
I
like?
mean, I guess that's just sort of what it feels like, is I'm not seeing how.
No, I'm asking you a question. It's really yes or no. Do you, would you like our feedback on that question? What's different about yours than others? Or would you just like to not get that reflection?
No, I love any reflection that anyone has to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we should give it to you unless you're actually really interested in hearing it.
No, that's the only reason I even brought it up again, is because I am really interested in, and this is obviously something that's coming up for me to have a different perspective on or see differently.
Okay, sorry, Jenny, I just wanted to.
No,
make
that's
sure.
fine. That's thank you for doing that. So Ellen, sometimes I find myself in a thought stream, and it feels like I'm in a river. It's a thought stream, and it just keeps coming out and coming out and coming out, and then it goes on tangents of little fingers of the river. And what happens with that is then the oh, I'm talking too much will start to come. So what happens is it seems like you get in a thought stream like that, and just see if this resonates. And in your thought stream, you're asking multiple questions, and so it feels very ethereal. And instead of just saying what's on your mind and then stopping, it's almost like you're not going to get it all out. And if you don't get it all out, you're going to be misunderstood. So it's actually this filter of this person that's not being heard is what you seem to be speaking through. And it over here, it feels like a thought stream. And so by the time I go to answer your first question, you've already given me 3 more other questions. And then there's like a shutting down over here. So do you see, if you just choose one thing, and that's why writing it down is so good, because it'll clarify the thought and you'll be able to just deliver it. And then you can stop before you give the next thought.
I guess that's just what I've always had trouble doing is I feel as though I am being at least relatively clear about what I'm trying to say and express.
Hey, stop there, stop
Um,
there, stop there.
Yeah.
You see, that was a complete thought. I thought I was doing this. I thought I was being clear. Stop. Do you see how the thought stream starts to go? Can you see it happening? And then when you go to
No,
talk
there's
again,
I don't see it happening. All that it's just happening. Like it's not. There's thoughts happening in the background as I'm speaking right now, but they're just saying, "Oh, you're not being clear." And
okay, stop,
so
stop,
yeah.
stop, stop right there. They're just saying, you see, stop. That's the breath. They're just not being clear. Now you stop. That's the complete thought. And then the next thought comes out. And that way you're breaking the stream of thought. And I would say if you just practice that for a little while, catching yourself is when the minute you start to say and, stop yourself. And go, oh, that was a complete thought, because and is just connecting the next stream of thought.
Or but.
Right. And so if you just practice that for a little while, you might be able to get in the gap of those thoughts that you're connecting as one long stream.
Alan,
That makes sense.
I'd like to say, Alan, that I feel totally misunderstood about my intervention.
Well, so that comes up too. That wasn't the intention. I really did try to word what I said in a way to
I know.
try to make clear that that wasn't the way I took it. I didn't take it as though you were saying that I was talking too much or something. That's not what I meant. I was
Alan,
just trying
pulling
to.
your leg, Alan. Vince is pulling your leg. He's joking.
Oh, no, there was an element of truth there. When your response was that you felt misunderstood, I felt like I was misunderstood. Not that I don't put any import on that, but it was the case because I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with exactly what you do. It's what I used to do so much, and probably still do. I don't even see it happening when it happens, but yeah. Look, it's one of the things that came up for me recently was I did some selfing. I got really piqued, I suppose is the best word, by saying somebody said to me, are you upset about something or other? I even forget what it was now. And I said, no, I'm not upset. But it was clear from the following conversation that they didn't believe that when I said, no, I'm not upset, that I actually wasn't upset. And then I realized, of course, what we have in this society is this total bullshit where we say one thing, but what we mean is something else. So when we say I'm fine, everybody takes that as you're not fine, that you're just pretending to be fine, or you're just saying it because it's the right thing to say, or whatever, And my response was, I haven't got time for that bullshit. If you don't believe me when I say what I say, then that's the end of it. And let's not go any further, because I'm going to be straight with everybody. And so I probably was a little bit too straight with you, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just
I don't
now the
apologize
thoughts
for it, but
are that
yeah.
I have to monitor when I speak and how I speak, so that I'm being sure to stop when I've finished a thought and take that. But you see what I'm saying? That's what
Yeah.
happens when
So Alan, when you do that, there's no dialogue, and then you don't feel heard. You see, it plays on itself. So it's not that you're monitoring your thoughts, but you're becoming aware of a pattern that keeps you from feeling heard, because there's no ability to have dialogue when there's no pause. So then again, it's reinforcing the pattern of you not feeling heard. So it's really for you, this awareness. not the same as having to monitor your thoughts for us. Do you see the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, I see the difference. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, one of the things that I'd like to stress about this group is that it's a no holds group, no holds barred. No, you're gonna get the most out of it with the most authenticity. Just let it rip. Don't worry about what people think.
But it feels here in this experience like me speaking the way that I'm speaking right now without trying to have some kind of filter for it. I'm just speaking right now and saying what's coming out is authentic.
Yes, yeah, I get that.
That was
Yeah, and
beautiful.
that-
And there was
Yeah.
dialogue. That was beautiful, Ellen, and there was dialogue.
I'm wondering about how we got into the conversation with Leela about, like you said, it wasn't even about the ketamine, but the body, right? And how Alan is from here up with with everything that's happening right now, right? Like I can remember being guided by Todd and on a call, and it was not up here. It was like, okay, I'm wondering, Alan, have you done any of any kind of body work at all as far as like noticing the sensations?
I have, yes.
Like with your guide or?
No, just on my
Okay.
own.
Oh, just on your own.
Yes. Guided meditations, really mostly just sort of taking you more into the body and helping to sort of guide your and keep your focus there and out of the mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I wouldn't be the one to do it, but I think that a more experienced guide, I don't know if there's one here who's willing to take her through that part, as opposed to it just seems like we're trying to convince her of something as opposed to coming back to the direct experience. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to do a whole process, but the goals, like whenever you encounter one of these road, like Vince always says, if things are feel shitty, that's a gift. If I'm having a miscommunication or I feel misunderstood, that's a gift. And to look into your body and say, when I feel misunderstood, where is that? Is my jaw tight? My neck get tight? Do I stop breathing? Is it in my gut? So that feeling that was behind the text you wrote us, I would take that into your body and say, where is that in my body? What does it feel like? And then with a guide over a little bit of back and forth, you can start to see that the reaction and the feeling are not necessarily connected, number one. So you can unhook the cars on the train of thought. The gap, there's the place where you can unhook one car from another. And then the other is just to notice where's the self in all of that, because that's our inquiry here. It is like who's the other, who's the Vince, and who's you, and who's being misunderstood really, and what is that all about? It would take longer than, I don't know if I don't feel skilled enough to do it really here, Alan, but that's the whole. This is coming up for a really good reason. It may be your portal to see through yourself, because this is a very key and probably early trauma experience for you. It's probably and it has a lot of charge, and something with a lot of charge is where you want to go.
Yeah, and if it didn't have a lot of charge, then I debated with myself even saying anything else about it, because I thought, no, this is just, this is something for me to reflect on here. I shouldn't bring it up, but then I thought, no, that's not why I'm here with you guys. I didn't I'm not sitting here with you guys because I'm just gonna do this all on my own again. So it got brought up because, yeah, there is a charge and it is very deep. You're right. So it's a lot more to it, I guess, in the thought story than just, you know, than it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
just being
thank
some
you.
kind of casual issue. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah,
Because the
good value.
sensation that's felt is like a heartbreak kind of sensation. The heart gets that, you know, that heartbreak feeling that you get sometimes, and then
Yeah,
tears
that's
come
it.
up. It's very
That's it,
emotional.
Alan. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Um, I was listening, I like for years listened to like non-duality videos and was always just here with it and always how, but I want to figure it out. I want to, what do they mean? Let me figure it out. Let me be reflective kind of. But it wasn't until coming to a call like this where somebody guided me to, well, I remember what he said was, it isn't what you're believing. It's that you're believing that you're the person who's holding that belief. And then he guided me to, well, he asked me the question to, where is it in the body? Where's the sensation? And so, like I said at the beginning of the call, it's always like, what is the sensation now? Like when you wrote that whole text, what was going on here? Because I remember for me, like I never really looked at what's here. And then when I started doing that, like, where is it? Where is it? Oh, like you said, it's a heartbreak. It's in my heart. Or sometimes it would be in my throat. And it would come to a point where it'd be wah, wah. It was like vibrating. And I would just stay with it and stay with it without having to think about it. Just staying there is what really.
And that was what was offered before that, and by Vince, and I think that's perfect. Yeah. So definitely I also didn't want it to seem as though nothing was heard here on this side, because it definitely was. I absolutely think that's really the best thing. And if anyone knows of any guides that, you know, work with more body work type stuff, I would be, you know, I'd love recommendation. I just happen to fall into finding you guys. So any recommendation would be great. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, Alan, I would suggest that you actually copy that text that you wrote so that you've got it after the end of this meeting, and that you sit with that, read that, and notice as you read it what sensations occur and where they occur in the body.
Without labeling it with a thought, like this is heartbreak, but just about, oh, what is that? Oh, what is the sensation? Like, what is it? Where is it? Like that, not like, oh, this is heartbreak and this is, you know, whatever.
Or, oh, what do I do about this? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Or I want it to go away.
Like,
I want it to go away. How do I fix
change
it? How do I fix it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. It's interesting that although we are absolutely unique, everybody has their own version of everything. There's now about pretty close to 150 people on the list for this meeting, and a lot of them just watch the recording. And it's every single week I get feedback from people about the fact that they've got something really positive out of hearing something that was relevant to them from somebody. So no matter what you say, somebody's going to get value out of it. Yeah, just all we need is authenticity, and it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing. Like my daughter, you didn't hear my daughter just now. My daughter was whining because she wants me to go get her cake from downstairs. And you know, that's what the fetters 4 and 5, and looking at the reactions, slowing it down like someone else was saying. I think it was Donna Lou. But also what Donna Lou just said about this embodiment work at meditations. It's like you could do a meditation, but it's in the moment, like somebody else was saying. It's here. It's right here in every moment. It's not in a meditation. It's my daughter's whining, and whoa, she's whining. Oh, you know, like it's always whatever. That's why we say it's a gift when this stuff comes up. It's not up here thinking about it. It's here, but in every present moment when something comes up. It's not, doesn't have to be like a meditation you sit down and do. It could be, but for I think it's just what is.
Yeah, it's worth appreciating that when it's up in the head, that's an escape from what's going on. We're trying to divert.
And in my experience, I've learned not to really trust the label of emotion, like, oh, this is sadness, to dive underneath it and take that label off and go, what is my mind labeling as sadness? And then I'll always find, oh, it's a contracted sense in the chest, and my thighs are doing this, you know, and it'll be a combination of uncomfortable sensations. And just by dipping below the labels that the mind wants to, you know, it seems like the emotions are the Velcro between the story and the sensations. And if that Velcro is torn apart, that's what I was talking about earlier, then, oh, there's the story that's causing this contracted energies.
Absolutely, yeah. What we find frequently is that sensations validate thoughts, and thoughts validate sensations, and it goes around and around. Yeah, separating the two is so valuable. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever noticed it. This was one of the major ahas for me, is like I was listening to a meditation that said, bring attention to your left foot. And that left foot out of the void took shape. Simply by naming it, and the picture in my mind of a foot. And I was like, oh my God. And so what became so evident is this, the one who is suffering, as soon as I say, in the beginning, there was the word. That's what I immediately thought of. So my mind says, oh, I'm he's such a wretch, right? Then that person with that story takes shape. Just like if I concentrate on my left foot, and that energy conforms to that. But I close my eyes, and the person, the shape of the person has to disappear. And so I think the stories is what caused the creation of the energy, which takes shapes of the body, which solidifies and velcros that sense of self going through that thing.
Yeah. That's good. That's really great. Yeah, labels are absolutely, labels are a whole story in a word. And as soon as we do label anything, we cease to relate to the actual thing and start relating to the story of the thing, which is hidden in the label. Maybe not hidden, but it's there in the label. Yeah.
Phil, tell her about the thoughts, Phil. Phil's one of the ones that helped me get through the gate with what you said about thoughts that one time. I wrote it down. Do you remember?
Yeah. About,
Because it seems like
really,
a lot with Alan with the thoughts. I don't know. It's a lot.
For me, I made it, I had a belief that I had to fix this thinking. The thinking was a problem. So I was always pushing it away in some way. And that's really, you kind of like on this path, you kind of get the idea that thoughts are bad, like they get cast in a bad light because they cause all these problems. But actually they're not the problem at all. It's the resistance to them, or the distancing yourself from them. That creates like this kind of like sense of no, this kind of like no to what is. So really what happened here was there was just giving up of trying to fix the thoughts and just allowing them to be whatever they were. They allow them to come, allow them to basically just arise and say and do whatever they want, because they're doing that anyway. They're already doing that. So you're not controlling it, and you just have to sit back and almost enjoy the show, really. And then they don't stick as much. They come in, they go. You really don't care. You've got no. You're basically allowing them to. You surrender. It's like a surrender. It's a letting go to the thoughts, and just letting them be. That doesn't mean you're getting lost in the story, but even if that happens, it doesn't matter. It's like you could then make a story out of that, and then you pile the judgments on top of it. So it's like, just if you can even see a judgment and say, oh wow, there's a judgment, that you're not identified with it. You know, it doesn't matter. It has no effect on you at all if even a judgment arises, a self-judgment arises, if you don't believe it. And when you're allowing the thoughts to come like this, then that's you're disidentifying them. That's what I've found. And that was a lot of freedom, just to allow that. And then thoughts sort of kind of like leave you alone more. You know, they don't bother you. They can't bother you really, because you're allowing them to be there. You've already given them permission, and that's a way of sort of freeing them up. It gives you much more space, and there's nothing to do then. There's nothing to do. Just allow the thoughts to come up, and so be it.
That's beautiful, because when the thought passes like a cloud, rather than chasing it down with another story about that thought. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I
Just
really like
passes.
the analogy of clouds, because it is like that. You know, sometimes there's just clouds in the sky. You're not sitting there like trying to get rid of them. You're not like trying to force them away. You just allow the clouds to come, and then you know they'll clear away eventually. So if that's the case, then that's just the way it is. If the mind's stormy, busy, you know, the most you can say is, "Fuck, there's loads of thoughts." You know, allow them to sort of clear, and then they'll clear by themselves. There's no one there doing that, and it's just sitting back into that, and that sort of, that's just dropping the resistance, which in many cases is kind of giving them the energy. So it's dropping away from that, and then allow them to clear by themselves.
And seeing that they're always promising happiness, like Vin said. Every thought, all the thoughts are promising you that, you know what, once I figure this out, then I'll be happy. Once I get this, then I'll be happy. Once whatever it's saying, notice how it's always something that's promising you something. It's
yeah,
amazing.
They're always a promise in the future. They're always promising something that's not here already. But you're not gonna figure it out. So don't even bother. Don't try and figure it out. Just give up that, because you can see, you know, your experience has told you that it doesn't work. So just stop trying to look to thoughts for the answer. You won't get it in thought. And then just by letting go, then you relax into not knowing, and then yeah, it's relaxing into not knowing instead of trying to get out of that into the next moment. You won't find it in the next moment. It's already here. It's already the case. And if you just if you relax into that, that's when you'll see it.
Yeah, I this might be helpful. I don't know. The relationship with thoughts. Me and my thoughts have become friends. Actually, quite good, quite intimate friends. We're such good friends that I can tell them to fuck off and leave me alone, and they do that, and they don't take any offense because we're really good friends. And they just seem to, you know, if people say about not having thoughts, I don't know if I don't have thoughts, but I do recognize that there's almost like every time I think about it, they're there, but I couldn't tell you what they're about. They just go off and do their own thing in the background because, you know, they just do what they do. You know, I don't have to take any notice of them. Sometimes they do direct action, but a lot of time I just don't know. So that idea of having a friendly relationship with your thoughts, I think, is valuable. You know, they're not the enemy, that's for sure. Although we do tend to demonize them a little bit in the beginning, but it's just because, you know, we had them up on a pedestal. We gave them credibility that they don't deserve in the early days. That's all. Anyway.
I notice sometimes what turns a thought into a belief is that contraction energy. And when there's been a lot of trauma, as was in this case, there was a false sense of self that overlaid it, that didn't allow, just watch them go by as clouds. You know, they were all like, you're a piece of shit, you know, 24/7. I understand. And the way I was paying attention to them was like to the exclusion of the birds and watching that horror movie. And so now that that there's a relaxation and I can watch the thoughts go by, it's like, and the body now is just going, the first part of our phone call, you know, like a snake that has had its head cut off. And now the residue is going, because the body of a snake, you know, continues to go, and not allowing those, you know, not allowing any thoughts to come in, which it's been a 13-year process of not trusting that there is something wrong when this is happening, you know, but trusting the benevolence of this intensity.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, that's good.
So I think trauma has an effect of which thoughts go through and how easy it is to disidentify from them, you know, and yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah.
You know, in a way, you know, I've heard, you know, we are our trauma, but we aren't our trauma. The ego identification was born out of the trauma. So it's made of the trauma that's in the body that comes out through the mind and gets labeled and runs around like thoughts. But that alternate identity that we thought was us was born out of the trauma. And going back to the root of sensation in the body and being with that. As you know, I'm awake, and my body is, I'm waking, and now I'm becoming aware of my body.
Yeah. Yeah, I liken the the illusion, the self that we used to believe we were is a suit of armor. This is something that's fairly recently come to me. It's a way of protecting ourselves from a I don't know, from all the bad stuff in the world that's rife and is everywhere, kind of thing. Part of believing that. And then when we drop the self and drop the armor, wow, it's like, you know, it's crazy. Part of dropping it is recognizing that the world isn't a dangerous place that's going to eat us up if we don't protect ourselves from it. But there is that suit of armor that the self is, just going on what Leela said earlier, is it manifests physically. And so our body becomes a suit of armor. And when we drop the self and we don't need that armor anymore, the body changes. We can start to actually, I don't know, enjoy it. Enjoy it's not the right word, but we can allow it to be expressive. We can allow it to do what it wants to do. And what it wants is always pretty good, nice and pleasant. Yeah. And so if something unpleasant comes up, it's telling us something. It's to be welcomed as, yeah, here's something to look at. And if it manifests, LJ, if it manifests as illness, it's because we've been ignoring it. We've been trying to suppress it. Not intentionally, of course, but that's the way it is, you know. All that bad shit that happens to us that we've seen as bad stuff is really trying to protect us. It's really trying to look after us. It's just it's just not the best way it could happen, but it's the way we've been taught. And that's where the problem lies. Yeah. So in other words, we're really at a point now where we're reparenting ourselves, teaching ourselves about a different world to what they taught us. Well, them and our peers and so on. Yeah. Yeah.
Where did that hit home?
The other day I was thinking about armor when you said that, as those women who get their feet bound. And then every time we have that thought process, it's binding, it's binding, it's binding, it's binding, it's binding. And that sense of the false self, you know, just bound and like this. And then in this work and seeing through the self, it's like, oh, and that's what's stored in the body, this bound foot. And so we start unbinding it by slowing down and recognizing what it is. We take the wrapping off. And if my foot has been bound like that for 60 years, and I try to start and I relax the tension and I invite this to relax, ow, what's going to happen? It's going to hurt like freaking hell. And that was the insight just recently that accompanied this intensity that's starting to make it okay. Oh, it's going to hurt. It's relaxing. It's going to hurt because it's been stuck for so long in that shape. So it's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable now and letting the binding relax.
Yep. Yeah, that the idea that if we bound it up again, it would stop hurting is yeah, the suck in. Yeah.
I'm not sure just when the right time to share this is. I was listening to a fellow this morning, and he's mentioned that there were two trees in that first garden, and one was the tree of life, and the other was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a lot of the conversation we've had today is as soon as we start to place good, bad value judgments on our thoughts when they arise, we start to get ourselves all tangled up. I just found that presenting that image, so it's been in my head all day, so I thought I'd share it before. And I have to go soon, but the two trees, the knowledge of good and evil, if you take that in, even you go to the biblical sense, and the biblical sense is by knowledge means becoming one with. It's just eat from the tree of life, and the other don't associate.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, one of the things that I recognized some time ago that's really useful, and especially for me because I'm prone to it, is having an opinion. If I have an opinion, that's a judgment. And that tree of knowledge just invites lots of opinion and judgments, doesn't it? Hence the 10th fetter is, I don't know anything.
I'm remembering the Zen master. I've been thinking about this all week, who was asked, what do you do, to become enlightened, how to become like you? And he basically, his 3 words were cease cherishing opinions. And I love that. I always remember that, cease cherishing opinions. And I just wanted to share a little bit with myself. I felt really quiet. A few weeks ago, the seeking just kind of dropped. I became extremely uninterested in seeking, which had been I think it just exhausted itself. And so I've just been kind of quiet and living and wondering what the heck is happening. I don't call myself awake. I don't call myself asleep. I have no idea what's going on really, except I feel like a ton of bricks is off my shoulders, and like things are going well. And I just keep having this sense of the unknowability of it all. Just nothing is knowable, and opinions just don't interest me. And they seem funny to me. Like people come in with their fierce opinions about how the body works or how anything works, and it just all seems funny, like, well, that could be, but there's also a million infinite possibilities of what's actually causing that to happen. So, but I'm not arguing with people. It's not, that would be funny too. I would be on my little high horse. But I thought it was interesting the other day with doing no work. Like I'll meditate if I feel like it, but it's really just being with myself quietly and nothing, and so there's no writing, there's no looking, there's no inquiry, nothing. There's no strong feelings either. So, but the other day I went to bed and I didn't sleep at all. And I just felt this crazy charge through my body. It was just so strong. And by like 4 a.m, it became, with again, really no seeking. It was this just awareness of my desire to be special. It was just so infantile. I was really young. It was my father I was wanting to like crush my mother. It was so Oedipal, or Electra or whatever. But it was just like, wow, this thing of being special is just holding this whole self together in so many ways. And I just stayed with it. I saw clearly what it was. It was so sexual too. It was just so like this, like, wow, like imagine a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old feeling all that sexual energy and be completely confused. And if I could just throw my mother off a cliff, and the guilt that would have felt like, it was so clear how these things get started, how these cells get created, and all the trauma and all the stories. And then, oh my God, I've got to beholden to my mother for the rest of time, and I'll call my father bad, and just how it all unwinds. But one of the things that I felt was interesting about it was that no work went on to come to this experience. There was nothing. It just unraveled on its own, in its own timing. And I don't even know where it goes. Like none of it is knowable. And I just find it quite a relief. The body will unravel itself. It will, in some way. And I just, I share that because sometimes I may go and be driven to try ketamine for the first time, or I may, want to see a Rolfer or something. Like today, that doesn't occur to me at all. It doesn't feel like it, but you never know. That experience could show up and I would move with that. But there's something just so relieving. And I do thank this group as well, and Vince, you too. And it's nice to, after so many years of wanting something to be different, to just be okay with it, how it is, the unknowability, the incredible unknowability of it all, infinite unknowability. Yeah. So thanks.
That was
Just wanted to
fucking
share.
beautiful, Wynn, really beautiful. That's the reason I do this stuff, to hear stories like that. That's so moving. I just love it, love it, love it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was great, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in. You guys don't have a background on Wynn and I have been friends, I don't know, 35, 40 years, whatever, a lot of years. So I'm going to jump in because when I was talking about the
High school,
ketamine,
yeah.
I'm used to your judgment about drugs. And so I'm like, I know Wynn's having a judgment thought about that. And it's interesting because I heard.
Lauren, I may come to you and do ketamine.
No, I know that. I know that's unraveling, and I'm so relieved. That was my expectation based on our previous interaction, right? So it's such a relief to hear you say what you just said, but also just to point out that whole Freudian thing, that's a story too, right? That's the psychological thing that's unraveling. You and I have studied psychology for so long, that Freudian story becomes a reality. It actually manifests in our trauma body, whatever, pain body, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. So everything. So when I say ketamine, do this, it doesn't mean I don't say take chemotherapy, don't do, do the full Western medicine, full court press. I'm not saying anything. I don't friggin' know anything. I'm just, all we do is give our experience at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that I feel that pressure off, that I want to guard myself from my friend's usual habitual reaction. Like, oh, here it comes. It's the drug thing. No.
Yeah, don't worry. I had pizza.
I know that.
My little vegan self had like chocolate cake.
Self.
My anti-caffeine self had bites of chocolate. And I'm like, I have cinnamon bun. I'm like a wild woman now. No judgment. It's all
I'm airing
good.
our dirty laundry for the benefit of the group.
And I'd like to just pop in something that's really valuable, I think, for everybody. What Wynn experienced was the letting go of trying to achieve something. That letting go, that just abandonment, that surrender is just so valuable. It's just so so welcoming to stuff happening. It's just, brilliant. Yeah.
And I let go of nothing. Yeah, I just say that literally I woke up and it dropped, it was gone. So I didn't do a thing. Yeah.
I want to testify to how
exhausted.
tight she was holding and how big the letting go has been. It's major.
Rigid. Yeah. Lots of rules.
Well, no
Lots
judgment about it. No.
No, I got it. Yeah. I you helped me a ton, my friend Lauren. Yes, you did.
We're not done, girl. Keep on going.
I know, it's forever. It's forever unknowable, forever unraveling.
Yeah. I see a band of Amazons forming here.
Yeah.
Mm. Good stuff. Yeah.
You know, I watch how control seems to be there, you know, in this pattern, and even feeling that uncomfortableness in the body and not being able to be with it, needing to go eat or go sleep or falling asleep or whatever to get out of that sensation, because I wanted it to be different. And just this call has been so helpful, because then the mind wants to control, well, let me blah, blah, blah story about how I'm going to be able to access this sensation and the thoughts behind it, and how I started out in the beginning of the call. And now I'm like, wow, that is such control and resistance to what's in the body, thinking that it should be different. I shouldn't be falling asleep. I shouldn't be trying to describe. I shouldn't be trying to control. Like, just the whole dynamic is so, right? The whole dynamic is just like watching the whole mechanism of it and be totally okay with it, because this is the unwinding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of like, I remember in the moment I was thinking, how did I make this so hard for so long? I made it so hard. Like, one of the things I thought about was like stressing over a guy like in my 20s, and like, wow, I did that for so long, you know, like how did I suffer that much? How did I make that so hard? It's so simple.
Wouldn't it be great, Ja, if you could just transmit it to your daughter so she wouldn't have to go through all that suffering?
Oh my God,
Give
yeah.
her a little shakti pot on the forehead, and then
Oh God.
take away that whole 20s, 30s, and 40s of suffering. Trying to
Yes,
become
yesterday.
important and significant and special and beautiful, and
Oh
get
God.
everybody's opinion about what they think about
Jesus.
her.
Yeah. Oh my God. So yesterday we came home from Florida because we were with my mom. She moved to Florida, so we were there for 2 weeks, and my daughter was crying on the plane, you know. She was crying, she missed grandma, and she was really upset. And like, you know, in moments like that, that's when I'm like I just let her feel it, you know? Like, I didn't try to convince her that we were going back soon, or that she didn't need to be upset, and she didn't, you know, that we were going to do something fun when we got home. Like, I was just like, I hear you, girl. I even asked her, I said, I'm talking about you. Remember? I said to her, where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel that sadness in your body? And she said, everywhere, everywhere. But like, you know, we were talking, Vince, about parenthood yesterday too, and about like, yeah, like, you don't know, you just don't know, you can't do it right. It's like, it's just she's gonna become what, you know, whatever it is, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not under my control. It's not under my control.
Yeah, I have to say, for you who weren't there at the better meeting yesterday, I had an experience with my daughter that left me feeling like I was a really shitty parent. And yesterday, after that, things were really good between us. It was interesting, without doing anything. Just somehow, I don't know, I relaxed and everything was great. Yeah.
Wow. Because that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
So did you call her, or did she call you, or?
Oh, well, she's here with us. We came down to Melbourne together for a nephew's wedding, and we're still here together. So yeah, she's in. Yeah.
Here we
And
would
she actually
say
told me
happy
I wasn't a
Father's
shitty
Day.
parent, which was really weird. Sorry.
Sorry, I just said here in America, we would say happy Father's Day.
Oh,
It's that
okay.
day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, that's
Yeah.
right.
I don't know if it's a thing here at the moment or not. Yeah.
I guess it's not.
You know, I was going to say it's so interesting, the dynamic, because we're so energetically connected to each other. And the stories that I'm telling myself and living out that are, you know, that whatever come up from the body. But when I relax them and they release, it seems to affect the interaction with relationships as well. And it was kind of like what Bonnie Lou was saying. I think, you know, look at your foot, right? And then foot appears. And I think also when a story comes up about a relationship, then that appears. And so when I let it go over here, it has to dissolve over there and go back into the nothing. And the actual what's happening between the people, because the story filter dissolves the manifestation of a dynamic that could have just built into a whole new reality. Yeah. Story, you know, of stories. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting a feeling that I want to wind up. If you guys want to keep going, you can. But yeah. I'm blown away by the fact that, as usual, what an amazing meeting. Yeah. Very good. I love you guys.
Alan.
I do.
Thank you
Yeah.
all
Alan.
so much.
Yes.
Thanks,
Everybody else
everybody.
who
Thank you
contributed
all.
to you.
Yeah.
Lisa,
Thanks, everybody. Thank you,
Anna,
Vince.
Jenny.
Nice to
Yeah.
meet everyone.
Good
Thanks
time.
for letting me share.
Yeah. God.
Bye, Alan.
Alan, definitely come back, Alan. All of you come back, please. Yeah. Good. Okay, when you end it, it should it'll probably give me a message.
Okay, it says pause, stop recording. Stop recording is the one I want.
Yeah, we'll just go in for all and it will automatically stop.
Okay. Are you sure you want to stop the recording?